Hey Cleveland, Anthony Joki here, host of the 1085 Gridiron Podcast. In this episode, we have Stephen Thomas from earlier this week breaking down who he thinks the Browns should target in rounds 2 and 3. We wanted to pull this interview that we had with Stephen a few days ago because he dropped a lot of great information and thought we should kind of put that out there again as we wrapped up day 1 of the draft and head towards night number 2 tonight on Friday night. So here is Stephen Thomas with me and Jack McCurry from earlier this week.
So let's move into day 2 of the draft. The Browns currently have 3 picks, pick 41, pick 74, and pick 97, which they got in the Duke Johnson trade. Let's start with pick 41. I've seen a lot of people mock safety here.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some mock defensive tackle, even wide receiver, but due to the stacked wide receiver class, there seems to be a yearly thing now. At pick 41, I would go safety personally, but Steven, how are you feeling about pick 41? And give us some of your favorite prospects that could be there.
I'm with you. I think, again, we don't know what they're thinking on the inside. We don't know how they have these guys graded. But if we're even close on the media boards and how we view the roster needs and the way the talent matches up to the value of the pick, I would pick safety at this point. And it's, you got people who don't think Winfield is going to be there. Then there's people who do. And then there's people who think he's too injured and you can't count on him. And then there's people who don't think Delpit will be there. And then there's people who think he is, but he can't tackle, so they don't want him. And then there's Jeremy Chinn fans. And then there's Kyle Duggar fans. And then there's Ashton Davis fans. And I, for my money, if it goes like we think it's going to go, I'm going safety here. And I'm hoping for Jeremy Chinn or Grant Delpit, to be honest. But I've liked Ashton Davis. I get the concerns with his age and everything else. I've liked him quite a bit since the beginning of the season. He seems to be slipping down the board, so they might be able to grab him at 74 if they go a different route here. But if you're going to go safety at 41, I maybe even a small move up if your guy is there and you really, really like him that much. Kind of like what they did with Greedy last year, a few spots moving up, not giving up too much. Jeremy Chinn or Grant Delpit would be my top 2 picks. Winfield's not far behind. I mean, he's right there. If they take Antoine Winfield at 41, I'll be totally happy. You can go defensive tackle there easily. Guys generally seen in that range: Ross Blacklock, Justin Matabuke, Neville Gallimore. Some people have Jordan Elliott that high. I'm okay with those guys. Edge is a sneaky under the radar spot that they might want to take a look at here if someone they have rated highly falls. I know that they're not completely happy, not done. I don't want to use the wrong word, but they're still open and looking to add more in the edge room. So if a guy like Okwara is there, I could be talked into that. There's lots of people who say they've been out to Boise many, many times this year to not only see Ezra Cleveland, but they apparently really, really like Curtis Weaver. So he would be on the radar at that spot. If you talk a wide receiver, it's interesting when you talk about wide receiver because you can make a case for as early as 41 here, or you can make a case for, the 6th round or later and everything in between. Like you said, Jack, it's a pretty strong wide receiver class. If you're looking at 41, I mean, they take Pittman there, or I know T. Higgins still has a lot of fans. Denzel Mims seems like a pipe dream at this point. Earlier in the process, people were still talking about him being a 3rd rounder. I never bought that. Now it seems like he's almost a lock for the 1st round. Mims would be a steal at 41, in my opinion. I like Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State quite a bit more than a lot of other people, some too. And the kid out of Penn State, KJ Hamler, and I know Pete likes Jalen Reagor quite a bit. So I mean, there are a lot of guys in that range that it probably wouldn't be my pick to go wide receiver at 41. But if they walk out with one of those guys, how are you upset with adding that kind of talent to your team? Another spot I'd like to just at least touch on here is there's been some whispers that guys like Jalen Johnson out of Utah and Jeff Gladney out of TCU, and I even heard Christian Fulton is potentially falling out of the first round, and that's just mind-blowing to me. I've been a Christian Fulton fan for 2 years now. If one of those guys is there at 41, I mean, I don't know that you have to grab another corner at that spot. I think they need another one. But boy, they would at least be in the conversation for me at 41, because you think about putting those guys on the same field with Denzel and Greedy. Man, you've got a blanket out there on the opposing wide receivers. And then, if you can add an edge, and we got Miles and whoever your other edge is screaming off the edges, and Andrew Billings, I think, is going to be a lot better than people think he is. Man, you could cover up a lot of the issues at safety and linebacker with that kind of a group. So I don't know. It's going to be so interesting. 41, 74, and 97. You can make cases for about 5 different positions at each one of them. If you ask me, though, I'm with you, Jack. I'm going to go safety. And in order, not separated by a whole heck of a lot, I'm going to go Chin, Delpit, Winfield.
If you look at, you mentioned you could go like 5 different positions there, 41. When you look at what they did in free agency with the 1-year deals, they signed Carl Joseph to a 1-year deal, Andrew Billings to a 1-year deal, Kevin Johnson, Andrew Sandejo, BJ Goodson, all on the defensive sides to 1-year deals. How much of an impact do you think that's going to have on this? Because those could actually be kind of like a position in transition for this year. Say, all right, we're going to plug that hole for 1 year with this guy in free agency. We can't fill everything with starters in this draft. Next year, we can go grab a guy who can fill one of those spots that we signed these guys to a 1-year deal with.
Yeah, I think this is what I alluded to earlier. When you sign players to 1-year deals like this, I think some of it has to do with the salary cap, honestly, because I think the cap, we've all read the cap is supposed to blow up again next year and the year after. Now with the COVID situation, who knows if that's actually going to happen? But I think that played into some of the things. But also what they did with it was, they're kind of, it's twofold. They're 1-year auditions for these guys. I mean, if Andrew Billings or Carl Joseph or whoever, and goes out and has an all-pro kind of year, then they've earned a 4-year extension, a 5-year deal or whatever. You sign them and you're done with it, because they know the building, they know the team, they know the fans, they're already there. You got the hometown advantage and all that kind of stuff. But what it also does, as it pertains to the draft, is, like I said earlier, it gives you leverage to just play your board, because you don't have to grab somebody at that spot. You've got that spot covered for this year. So if you're at, say 41, and nobody, you really, really want a safety, but all the safeties that you have valued at 40 or higher, or 50 or higher are gone, you don't have to force one. You don't have to, you can go, all right, well, let's look at the defensive tackle group or the edge group, like I said, or whatever, And that's the smart thing about short deals like that is, like you said, it's a short-term plug in the leak that could turn into a long-term, but it also means the leak is plugged, at least for this year. And I think as far as this weekend, that's something to keep in mind. It was very smart of them to do that. Now they have the freedom to, we always hear this every year, trust your board. They really have the freedom to do that, because I can't see any place, left tackle. Other than left tackle, there's no place that, man, they have to come out of this with one of those guys. You could make a case for missing out on a wide receiver. You can make a case for not taking a corner. I don't want to do that, but you can make a case for, they seem to, not really want to spend a lot of assets on linebackers, so you could put that off till later in the draft. It's a very smart way to do business, and we have a very smart guy running our room at this point.
When you're looking at this draft and you look at the Browns' current roster, we're pretty, we're certain Landry and OBJ is going to be there. Who is going to be the third wide receiver on this team? Who's going to be attained? Is Higgins going to be back? Ellie Brodus want to know on Twitter.
Boy, that's $1 million question, isn't it? I still have hope, as I have for months now, that Rashard Higgins finds his way back to Cleveland. Just because 2 years ago, safety blanket and security net are overused. But, man, on third down, when Baker got in trouble and we needed to convert, who did he find? more often than not. I mean, they had some kind of. I'm reminded of the Coneheads line in the movie Miracle, if you remember that from the 1980 Olympic team. They just know where each other are. They just communicate well. They work well together. And in the shit show of last year's offense, it kind of got lost. But a lot of things got lost last year. So that would be my hope. But there's also guys. I'm curious to see what DJ Montgomery does. And I'm not saying that he's going to be the guy or he's going to be a star. But he was really turning heads last year before he got hurt. If you're looking to the draft, like we said, I think if you ask me, you can make a case for 41, but as things currently stand, unless there's a trade or they sign somebody or something like that here in these next few days, as things currently stand, I'm going to say 74 or 97 is probably the spot if they take a wide receiver that it's going to be. And so in that range, I'm looking at a Brian Edwards or I really like Van Jefferson because he runs great routes. He understands route concepts. And when you're evaluating wide receivers, it's very tough, because there's so many different things that play into it. But one of the things that I value quite a bit is guys who know how to get open, not only how to get open, but why it works. And then when you throw the football in their direction, they catch it. I mean, it seems very simple, but the guy, he runs great routes. He has a great understanding of the routes, and he catches the ball. He's got really, really good hands. He great effort in the blocking too for the people that are going to ask that question. So if you're looking in that range, I like Van Jefferson, but I mean, I'd be okay with Antonio Gandy Golden. I'd be okay with Tyler Johnson. Like I said, Brian Edwards, your guy Colin Johnson, I'd be totally happy with that. I like Isaiah Hodgins a lot more than a lot of people think. If you go down a little further, a guy that has gained a little bit of buzz that I used to be able to grab at the 244th pick, and now it seems like he's more in the 150 range, is Omar Bayless out of Arkansas State. I've really liked him for a long time now. I watched him absolutely tear it up in the bowl game this year, and I think he's got a great skill set. Coming from a smaller school, it might take him a little bit longer, but that's why you've got those top two guys there to teach him what it's like in the league and how to do it. So I would be happy if they decided to put wide receiver off, if they could somehow find a way to grab Omar Bayless on day 3. I would be a happy camper because I think he's going to outplay his draft slot. But yeah, I have no idea who's going to be the guy, that third wide receiver. I'm thinking, and Jake said he is breaking down what we think Stefanski's offense is going to be, because it's not going to be a carbon copy of Minnesota, despite what a lot of people on Twitter want you to believe. It's going to be similar, obviously, but it's not going to. He seems to cater it to his personnel. I think we're going to see more of the tight ends split out, both of them on the field at the same time, and one of them, playing the big slot kind of thing. You could see that with Kareem Hunt as well. He's a guy that can give you some snaps in that role. So if they don't come out of it with a, star wide receiver to be that third guy this year, and then hopefully move up in years to come when one or both of the older wide receivers move on, I'm not going to be particularly worried, at least not for this year. I think they've got guys in the pipeline who could develop, and next year's wide receiver class offers another, at this point anyway, another group of great prospects to choose from. So my hope, like I said, is Rashard Higgins. If they go to the draft, it could be any number of guys. And your guess is as good as mine.